Welcome to the Daily Exchange. We're here and we're talking about Red Belly blockchain hitting 30,000 transactions. Our guests from Kosmos Capital, Miles, and 1/3 of ICOs are not on exchanges yet. We'll see you guys right after this. All right, guys, we're back. Markets are up about 7 bill in market cap overnight. XRP and BCH leading the charge, in particular a 20% upswing overnight. Bitcoin Cash 21.95% up. Bitcoin trading at 6,500. Ripple at 53 cents, up 4%. Ethereum $218, Bitcoin Cash $530, EOS at $5.66, Ethereum Classic $11.12. Interestingly, Ethereum up $1.77, Ethereum Classic paused at only up 0.8%. Cardano down a little bit, and Tron trading at 2.1 cents. Bitcoin is back to that 52% dominance in the market right now, and it's moved past that critical 6,400 mark. Keeps to be dangling around that 6,500 mark square. The volatility of Bitcoin, if you want to bring this chart up, Joel, has hit a 21-month low. Ooh, that's slow. That makes it tough to trade. Less movements, less ups, less downs, just less volatility. Makes it much harder to trade. This is obviously shown logarithmically, which makes about 0 sense, but you can see the historical volatility, in the past there, but yeah, it makes it kind of difficult. Again, Bitcoin Cash has rallied after news that Bitmain has finally filed its application for an IPO. It's reported that mining giant Bitmain holds close to 30% of its assets in cryptocurrency. With Bitcoin Cash featuring prominently in that, Bitmain has been a public supporter of the fork. All right, guys, we're bringing in Miles. Welcome, Miles, from Kosmos Capital. He is the managing partner of Kosmos Capital, which is a VC firm specializing in blockchain-based assets. Welcome, Miles, to the show.
Hey, mate. Glad to be here.
Cool. You guys have been obviously investing in lots of ICOs and this new groundbreaking Red Belly blockchain. Miles obviously is the managing partner as well at Kosmos Capital, which obviously just specializes in these blockchain assets. And previously you were a partner at Alpha Block Fund and a number of Fortune 500 companies and startups related to technology and business. Tell us, Miles, how did you sort of, you've got Kosmos Capital. Why did you sort of start investing in blockchain with Kosmos?
Joined the team at Kosmos Capital because I just saw the opportunity that we could have in Australia and the Southeast Asia regions as a whole. That there was a number of just strong projects coming out of here, Singapore and other Asiatic regions, more so when I was at Alpha Block in the US. So it just made sense to join the forces and the teams together to create something bigger.
And what sort of clients do you manage right now? So do you have, who's under your portfolio?
So some of the stronger ones that we actually we've done recently, we're leading the investment raise for Red Belly. We've done investments in Algorand, Certic, our Rootstock out of Argentina, and then some other local partners as well. In the past, we've done Zilliqa, and you can name a couple others that have been out there. We've had over 70 within our portfolio to date.
Wow, that's incredible. You've also got, let's come back to the investments in a sec, but you guys have also got Cosmos Labs and the Blockchain Accelerator. Tell us about those parts of your business. What do they do?
When there's a couple of companies that we see just really solid tech and the ability to produce something in a strong team, we wanted to be actually given the opportunity and floor space to develop their projects, so we can actually bring it to market. Because we still see, even though in the bar market there are opportunities for strong projects, you just have to have built out those strong projects or a reverse ICO to launch in this current environment.
Cool. And let's talk about your current investments. So I've just brought up your site. We've got, I'm assuming your partners are all some of your investments: Trias, Lambda, Aogo, Certic here, Hadron, DX Chain, Phantom. That's a new one, obviously, a recent one. P-Chain and Oasis Labs. Any? So, are you mainly invested? What type of tokens do you like to invest in?
Originally, our investment thesis actually centered around infrastructure-based project, layer 1 protocols. What that was is just the underlying infrastructure that produced fast transactions that you needed, similar to just what you do with Bitcoin. And then later, as we developed, we see a number of these actually building into the top 10 of these base layer protocols. You actually can have build on top of it for layer 2 of actually the application usage. So think of it as a UX or the UI that you have with the layer 1, and then the UX with the layer 2 to actually usability. Like a Phantom is like a built on top of those infrastructures.
Gotcha.
And yep.
And so have you guys been investing in many utility tokens as well?
A number of actually most of these are utility tokens. So security tokens have been a recent trend in the industry that have propagated out. We're still waiting for a number of the regulatory environments to actually center around what they are launching to understand the investment environment for this space. Gotcha. Because I think it's going to center where our team is centered. It's going to come from like the SEC or Swiss or the MAS out of Singapore. They need to understand exactly what those environments are for securities to be able to start investing heavily into that market space.
Cool. And I guess talking about let's get on to talking about your Red Belly investment in a second. But before that, let's talk about can you talk a little bit about ICOs and how have they been performing for you, like in terms of these investments for the fund? So
if you look at it, we actually only invest in probably maybe 1% to 2% of all ICOs in the market space that's launched this year. Of those, we still have actually a very high return rate compared to the general market. One that recently launched was an investment of ours, Bcent, which did a 4x return rate over the weekend when it was launched on their exchange. So there's still a very high market, and then at the same time, it is a bear market. So there's actually going back to the fundamentals of what a business value proposition is, and business fundamentals of a business plan of what they can offer. So you start looking at it more of just like, oh, this is a white paper, to actually the business models more and more so. And it's a time for a lot of building. So you're actually, the people that are still playing in this market are looking at this building for the future that they're going to be here and for the long run, and the use cases attached.
Gotcha. And, I guess, well, that's great. And how has I guess, the changing nature of a lot of ICOs, a lot of people have lost a lot of money. They've dropped 90, 95, even 98%. How has that affected your fund?
Really, it hasn't so much, because most of our investments are locked up into our investments that have a vesting period. So we'll hold ours. We have a certain arbitrage opportunities to hold our currencies when they're outside of investments, and at the same time we'll leverage against what the current market is doing. So we don't have any issues within the space, and the investments have still done very well. So we haven't had major issues when it comes to losses for the VC firm.
Right. That makes sense. And where do you think sort of these ICOs, because a lot of these these utility tokens aren't really raising right now. We've seen some stats come out recently around number one, I guess, $2.3 billion. This is 1/3 of ICOs are not listed on exchanges. $2.3 billion worth of tokens are stuck in wallets. This is research from the firm Dair. Half of those projects have completed their funding in 2017. So a lot of people are waiting, I guess. Where do you sort of see that mean as to where the ICO will go? Do you think there'll be ICOs in the future?
They will. So an ICO is the initial coin offering, and it's usually referring to the public crowd sale. So yes, there will be certain situations. Do we have a percentage of tokens launched for an ICO, a utility token? But there's a lot of use cases that you actually move towards a security token. Like for real estate, it actually makes sense to potentially tokenize real estate because of trading, of having liquidity on your equity-based assets. Actually makes a lot more sense to be able to trade in and out of it much faster than you ever would in the traditional housing market or a condo complex.
Makes sense. Do you think a lot of the tokens that are still locked up will also have that same trajectory, like going near to zero?
It depends on the project. It's just like how you have in IPOs. There's good IPOs and there's bad IPOs. Depends on if you're going to be listed on a good exchange, like if you're going to NASDAQ, or you're going somewhere like in the middle, like the Middle East or somewhere where nobody knows where you're going to be launched. Same rules apply when it comes to the ICO market game.
I guess a lot of ICOs right now, they even you've got one like Bankera, raised 150 million in February. It's got $100,000 of liquidity now, and it's sort of
which one?
Bankera is a coin that's number 1703. It raised 150 million. Like even all these coins that are proposing, they've done these amazing things, I guess, and what they're potentially going to do. But when they've been unlocked and they've come out, a lot of them have just sort of gone up and then just gone way down, or even potentially. Is there a lot of selling pressure, do you think, left in a lot of these locked up ICOs?
Yes and no. It depends on the community building they do. Like if you're talking about a project that wants to just, people are only investing it strictly for the speculative markets, yes, there's a lot of buying pressure or selling pressure. If you're looking at this from a usability of like, you can actually use the tokens for the actual usability market, then there's actually potential of selling, going ups in the market. Like just how we mentioned VSIN as the primary example. There's actually have a good community they built in their the Asia regions. So there's a lot more. There's actually been some buying pressure to drive the price upwards, just compared to natural growth, comparative to just speculative growth.
Very cool. And so tell us, let's move on, I guess, in terms of the ICOs and the utility token. Do you think that this idea of security tokens, when do you think they'll be a reality?
When you have liquidity and use the public space for the users. So if you have people actually using the security tokens and understand it, and the liquidity on that for different exchanges, then you'll actually see it propagate within the marketplace.
Right. And do you think Kosmos will invest in security tokens as well? Yep,
definitely. We're actually looking at a couple now, and some people that were projects that were asked us to potentially invest and advise for them we're gearing them towards security tokens because it makes sense for their particular business model.
Gotcha. In terms of the next 5 years, do you have any sort of forecasts, Miles? I know 5 years is a long time, right, in blockchain cryptocurrency. Do you have any sort of forecasts?
Market. No, the forecast I would say is the market will come back. We're in a bear market right now, but we look at this as actually a growth building phase for the industry. You have actually consolidation of the actual players that will be able to build more in the industry of like whether it's funds, the exchanges, influencers, and then just players. The people that stay around now are actually going to do that. And the fact is we're developing the due diligence process for what a good project is for either a utility or security, because I still think a play for both. And we're going to actually see an upturn out of that. You'll see actually a higher growth potential, just like how we had out of the dot-com boom of the late 90s, early 2000s.
I hear you. And in terms of, I guess, assets and digitizing assets, or, do you think those things will change and I guess they'll be traded just like normal tokens on cryptocurrency markets?
Are you talking about digitizing assets like gold or like oil commodities? Is that what you're referring to?
Sure. Yeah. And then I guess people are trying to digitize diamonds and grain and all sorts of different things.
If you can do the KYC and have a process that confirms the actual physical assets are there, it makes sense why you would. That's just the next step in the evolution.
Yep.
It's easier to trade a crypto than you ever would be able to go through a bank transactions.
I hear. A lot of coins right now, a lot of people are speculating. Yesterday we had Zamfir and Vitalik musing on Twitter, potentially merging Ethereum with Zcash. Obviously, two projects that could potentially complement each other. Do you think there's going to be mergers of coins in the future?
Potentially. I actually think one of the plays would be merging of this like-minded coins, like Golem or with DX Chain. Those would be good pairings because they actually could leverage their joint partnerships. And if they actually joined a team together, they actually could create a bigger user base and for their tokens and build a pretty solid project.
Gotcha. You have any predictions for the end of the year in terms of Bitcoin, Miles?
I think it'll go up. Probably, I'll follow Mark Novogratz. We'll probably see like a 30% increase as well. Okay.
Very cool. So what, 9,000 US?
We should see something good, solid returns. The reason why is just based off of the flow of the infrastructure of there's a number of projects that are looking to launch, and a number of actually new investors are coming into the space to support the number of tokens on the secondary and launching of the tokens themselves.
Gotcha. In terms of something we were talking about before, you said you were hanging out in Singapore right now, and you met some of the original cypherpunk movement guys.
Yeah.
Do you think you know who wrote who is Satoshi and who wrote Bitcoin?
I wish. I think I could get a lot of money if I actually did. But no, I don't know anybody.
No secret handshakes, no secret messages handed over by the cypherpunk movement guys?
No, it was just investments. Sorry, mate.
Damn. Maybe some desert ceremonies, potentially. Moving on, let's talk about Red Belly. In terms of, you guys are the lead investors with this new blockchain. It's making headlines right now, backed up by the University of Sydney and CSIRO. It is a blockchain that is currently running on Amazon Web Services and has hit 30,000 transactions a second. Joel, if you want to bring up this image as well. Super cool, man. And then we've got Bitcoin currently goes at about 7 transactions a second. Zilliqa around 2,400 transactions a second, and VeChain potentially at 10,000 transactions a second. We've got an image here, Joel, if you want to bring it up in terms of the transaction per second speed of a few different networks. You can see Visa is 24,000, Ripple's at 1,500. PayPal at 193 a second, Bitcoin Cash at 60. For some reason, Dogecoin's at 33, but anyway. Dash 48 and Ethereum 20, Bitcoin 7. Now, the thing is, this Red Belly is really quite incredible, clocking a huge speed there. Why did you invest in Red Belly? Miles, tell us the story. How'd you come about finding that?
Yeah, so one of my partners, Anton, from Kosmos Capital, actually had a number of connections with the incubators in the government and University of Sydney. And we started talking with the team, Vincent, and the rest of the team. about who they are and how they built it out. We actually did probably about a good 5 months of good due diligence on actually the project and the team ahead of time to make sure, is this real and legit? Because claiming in the space, we've actually been limited to a couple hundred transactions, potentially a couple thousand, but this is the fastest blockchain we've actually ever seen. It's actually a new record for the space. And the reason why was strictly because we believe in the team. We believe in the technology, that they have a real life production environment that you can launch now and use. And then the ability for the backing of who they are from the CSIRO has a really good, the creators of Wi-Fi and Data 61. It's a very good story and easy for us to just get behind and support a project like this, even in the current environment.
Totally. Now, this new blockchain, it uses this new model. Can you tell us about this deterministic Byzantine consensus? I think there's a paper here about it. Efficient Byzantine consensus with a weak coordinator and its application to consortium blockchains. Wow, that's intense. Tell us, yes. what is this all about, Miles? Tell us all about this.
So talking about the blockchain, if you look at it, it's a consensus algorithm. That means instead of doing like a decentralized nodes across the spectrum of servers, you actually have a network of just power of nodes and users that actually have the usability on the chain. By the way, can we cut that out? I just fucked up.
That's not possible, actually, Miles. This is live.
All right, no worries. No worries. No, it's fine. It's a consensus algorithm, and it actually works. And the ability to, with a couple of just powerful users, that double checks themselves, and they actually do an on-chain, off-chain solution similar to sharding. To where you can do, you don't have to worry about like there being one powerful player, but you actually have a trusted users that you can use this on as well.
Very cool. And it's intended to be somewhere between sort of a public and a private blockchain as well. So it's got multiple use cases there, potentially in the financial sector. It's obviously, you're exploring industries like agriculture and education. Where do you see the first real-life application of Red Belly?
The Red Belly is supporting of a number of the dApps that are actually in production now. Like if you looked at Phantom that was recently launched out of South Korea, it could actually be the underlying infrastructure that supports this project. The way you can look at it is it's layer one of the ground-based foundation for the blockchain, and all the other ones you actually use on top of it for the user experience are going to be built on top of it. So this is like that initial integration, and everything built on top of it is how you're going to actually use it. So you won't see where Red Belly works. You're just going to see the speeds from the back end.
Gotcha. Very cool, and obviously a lot of work's gone in behind the scenes by the CSIRO and the University of Sydney, and which is incredible. It's really amazing to see what is going to come from that, because I think those guys have a proven track record. Again, like you said, they invented Wi-Fi and have exported that all around the world. Incredible stuff. Thank you so much, Miles, for joining us. And I wish you guys the best of luck with your new investments, and especially with Red Belly, which is incredible. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Exchange.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate it. Cheers.
All right, guys, moving on. We're talking about blockchains and how much they're actually used. There is a website called Blocktivity.info, and it has information about, I just want to give it a bit of an update in terms of actually what's going on with some of these blockchains. One way to consider a blockchain project is obviously through its market cap. Another way is closer to the real value is observing the activity on the blockchain. Lots of FUD and hype are responsible for misplaced capital in the cryptocurrency space. So here we are observing which project is actually being used by people. which is obviously, you know, in my opinion, this is not financial advice. Nothing to do with financial advice here. No financial advice. No financial advice. Straight from the Caribbean there. Which is, in our opinion, the best predictive indicator of value, right? So we've got BitShares still the number one blockchain, then Steam, again, not the second most popular blockchain, then EOS, the third most popular blockchain. Literally, Dan Larimer has a top 3 when it comes to the projects that he's been involved with. Then we have Bitcoin, Ethereum, then KMD. I know what that is. Ethereum Classic, I don't know how that could be the most that popular. Waves, Kin, Nano, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Dogecoin, SCR, la la la, la la la. And then Monero. Don't see Ripple here. Not sure why. Can't believe Ethereum Classic there again, just spinning me out. I love looking at this activity because it's, you know, it's really interesting to see which way the actual blockchains are being used. And as I said, I go back to my theory, and I think I've said this on this show before, is that I think most of the protocols and most of the blockchains are going to go to near marginal costs for running it. And the reason for that is that there is no actual reason why it should cost more than the computational cost. And the computational cost over time will keep going down and down and down and down as we go. And it should be cheaper. The cheaper, the better, because then these public blockchains can actually be used, you know, for bigger systems. And so, unfortunately, I do think these numbers will go up, but I think the prices will go down for most of the protocols. And I don't see any reason why that won't be the case. We were talking before again about with Miles about the unlisted ICOs, $2.3 billion. Joel, if you want to bring up the this graph of unlisted ICOs. Unlisted ICOs. That's a lot of ICOs. Again, funding back in 2017, investors have been unable to capitalize on most of those investments, which has been pretty punchy. Unlisted. Whoa. I'm not sure what to say about that, but is that because they think most of because there's no value there and the coins will go to zero? Could be. That was the whole purpose, I guess, of an ICO as well. And, you know, I think the speculation about utility tokens, whatever which way you cut the mustard, is going to be seriously, seriously in jeopardy going forward. Jeopardy, I love that word. Jeopardy. Of the tokens that are on exchanges, DIA reports that 44, which have raised a collective of $1 billion, sit at the bottom of exchange tables because they have practically zero liquidity. That's pretty heavy. We've got the top 10 losers graph. I don't know, Joel, if you want to bring that up as well. These are some of the worst performers. Shows the amount raised and how much the project's value has declined over time. PumaPay raised 117 million. Its market cap is 15. $102 million of value lost. Siren Labs, ooh, jeebus. Kin, not looking good. It's just not looking good. Bancor, wow, halved in value. I think there are a lot more than this as well. And then we have the most successful tokens, the ICOs to date, have their emphasis on projects which went to create their own independent blockchains. They call them foundation tokens. If you want to bring those up, Joel, the foundation graph. This is from the Dior research. You can see the ICO raise of Cardano at 63 million. Token holding now at 5.1 billion. The value there created 369 million. Even Tron there looking good. Neo only raised 3.7 million. Wow. Bonkers. Yeah. And then we've got an insight with the amount of capital raised through private token sales. We've got the private graph as well. We can see Telegram has raised 1.7 billion. Filecoin 200 million. Polkadot T0. Basecoin Hetero Hashgraph 100 million. That doesn't seem right. I thought Hetero Hashgraph raised about 2 billion. Anyway. Pretty concerning reports, obviously. This was taken from CoinMarketCap data and tokendata.io from the 20th of September 2018 to give you reference. Most of the project being illiquid or very close to, if not going to a very near zero. Yeah, kind of troublesome. Moving on, Stablecoin has been purchased, MakerDAO, 15% by the Andreessen Horowitz, who has purchased a 60% stake for 15 million. It seems like they got it at a pretty sharp discount, if I'm not mistaken. We do the mathematics on that. MakerDAO issues DAI, which is equal to $1 US. The DAI balance its prices through the use of smart contracts to buy and sell Ether when needed, which is obviously different to being backed by the US dollar, which is kind of cool. This is obviously a bit confusing, I can understand, because basically MakerDAO allows you to make DAI, and DAI is worth $1. And the MakerDAO situation goes up and down and buys and sells Ethereum, and they overstock in Ethereum because if it goes down too much, so they've got way more than is they need to. They're way overcapitalized, but that's what enables them to ensure that they could be stable, which obviously makes it a very interesting investment. We've got the Maker team is also right on schedule. Released the open source code for the DAI on September 17, which is kind of cool. Circle, a new stablecoin, Circle USD, has started trading. Circle USD coin starts trading on Poloniex and will add to OKX, DigiPhoenix, KuCoin, CoinX, CoinPlug, and XDAX. No financial advice. No financial advice. I love that. Tether, Maker, USD Coin, Paxos, Gemini, Carbon, Haven, even IBM, all in the dollar-pegged stablecoin game. I wonder if there'll be any arbitrage between the stable coins. Arbitrage. Depends on the prices, I guess, and the fees involved in trading them. I wonder if they'll be traded against each other. Interesting. It has been some new market research has come out as well, saying that Tether is not affected by the Bitcoin price. New studies come out about Tether, this controversial stablecoin. Currently has a supply of 2.8 billion, has no meaningful impact on the price of Bitcoin. To understand why, the study is important. Let's dial things back a bit. So Tether is controversial because there's a lot of doubt whether they've got the US dollars. Do they have the US dollars to back up their USD pairing? It became pretty problematic when we were sky high, obviously, with Bitcoin's price. And there was obviously a lot of capital flowing around, and obviously this would have really pushed the price of Tether up as more and more trading went on. But does that mean that we were artificially inflated? Could they have released Tether without the actual USD backing? Who knows? Maybe that pumped the price up. Caused a lot of traders to worry. And obviously Joey Krug, the co-chief investment officer at investment firm Pantera Capital, said in a New York Times article in January this year that if USDT was manipulating the price, it could mean that a lot of the rally of December and January might not have been real. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, a massive implication for the market, and the sentiment may have contributed to Bitcoin's catastrophic decline in January, which saw nearly half of the coin's value wiped out in a single month. So back to the study and its findings. This study by the University of Queensland contradicts the belief that USDT pumped up the price of Bitcoin and instead claims that USDT has no meaningful impact on the Bitcoin price. Dr. Wang Chung Wei, Dr. Wang Chung Wei, Dr. Wang Chung Wei, got it. Went on to say claims saying that it is Tether that props up Bitcoin, but are definitely not true. This is not true, despite there being more than $2 billion worth of Tether on the market. This is important news for cryptocurrency users everywhere, as it points to the legitimacy of Bitcoin's value now, as well as the all-time value. Interestingly, though, the paper did have this to say whether or not the pattern of new Tether entering the market was suspicious or not. Our findings was suspicious or not. It says, and I quote, "Our findings show that Tether grants were potentially timed to follow Bitcoin downturns, and subsequent Bitcoin Tether trading volumes increased." Well, you know, if you are issuing more Tether, you're going to trade and buy more Bitcoin or sell more Bitcoin. Of course, you're going to have higher volumes. That's pretty obvious, I would have thought. No financial advice. So it appears that the paper claiming the USDT may have been released to coincide with the dips in Bitcoin's price, but regardless of whether or not pumping up the price was the intention, it had no effect. Bitcoin's fine. Lastly, I want to make it clear that we are making no claims ourselves about the issuance, distribution, or reserve capital of Tether or its USDT stablecoin. It's pretty important that they said that, because it's saying that they're not sure either. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up with prices. Bitcoin trading at 6,491, Ripple at 53 cents, Ethereum at 218, Bitcoin Cash $526, EOS at $5.66, Ethereum Classic $11.12, and Cardano at 7.9 cents square on the nose. IOTA trading at 55 cents. All right, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Do subscribe. Do follow us. Press the little bell at the top. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. That was the Daily Exchange. Yeah.